Hello, Centralia. I'm going to tell you guys some stories tonight. So set the stage here. The years, the early 1970s. The setting is Vietnam, during the height of the Vietnam War. We have a U.S. soldier out on tour, standing out there doing his guard duty thing that he's required to do. He was, on this particular night, he was assigned a M16 with a grenade launcher. He has this grenade launcher sitting right here next to him, pulled forward with the grenade launcher in it, so that if he gets the permission to shoot at the enemies, that he can shoot at the enemies. So he's sitting there, hanging out, trying to not fall asleep, not be bored, stimulate things, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one of his fellow soldiers comes up, decides it would be funny to dry fire his weapon. So they pull it back, and they pull the trigger, and that small chain of events sends off a massive shockwave, because this grenade goes off, goes right past this soldier's ear, almost takes his head off, and explodes in a field nearby. With all the recent attacks from the Viet Cong and other enemies, the phones start ringing, everything starts going off. What's going on? What's going on? Are we under attack? What's going on? Oh, take cover! Ah! Okay? So, he's not very happy about that. Some of you may be soldiers, some of you may not be soldiers, but from what I've been told from soldiers, and the soldier actually was my dad, and from my dad, there's kind of one rule in combat: you don't touch another soldier's weapon. And don't know how much of that is true. Of course, never served myself, always wanted to, but had massive health problems that prevented me from being able to serve this fine country. Our second story, also same setting, around the same year, different soldier. He was a helicopter mechanic, and he decided that he was going to go out with the troops to reinforce some lines along the outside perimeter. And a little bit of backstory: they've had some Viet Cong and other North Vietnamese army people coming through from the behind and doing sneak attacks. There was very poor communication this day, for on this day nobody told anybody about any reinforcements coming from anywhere. And so they're marching along, they take their break, and the soldier takes his helmet off and is doing his thing, and then it's like, all right, back to marching. So he gets up and he starts marching again. And as he gets down the trail, he realizes, oh no, I left my helmet behind. Well, I can't break formation and go get it now. I'm stuck without it. Just got to trudge through. So he trudges through, and they get out there to the front lines. And as they're out there on the front lines, one of the soldiers that was already out there that wasn't informed of the incoming troops to support and reinforce them turns around and sees this guy's head and thinks, Viet Cong! Shoots off a shot, goes whizzing right by that soldier's head, almost takes him out. Needless to say, as probably any of us would be, he wasn't too happy, had a few choice words to say, and that soldier actually was my grandfather. Final story for you guys tonight. There is another soldier, again, Vietnam War, and he is an information officer at Saigon. He is out, sneaking out, doing whatever soldiers do when they sneak out, but he's out past curfew, and he all of a sudden gets in there's some sort of shooting going on. Didn't really specify what kind of shooting, but a bullet goes right here between his ear and his head, and he survived, unknown to him that because his future wife was actually back in the United States praying for him. He ended up coming home on leave because his fiancée, that wasn't his future wife, was killed in the major airplane crash. And then when he ended up coming back, he got into, he was sad, he had to go back to Vietnam, but that was right there towards the end when everybody was pulling out. So by the time he got back to Vietnam, he had no unit to go back to. So he had to survive out there and on his own on the black markets. And his last 2 days out of, I believe he said a week, he come back. And then, kind of to tie in with tonight's theme of change, he was hooked on drugs and didn't know what he was going to do with his life. actually smuggled back some, like he said, 100 hits or so of some sort of orange something drug. And he somehow was convinced by one of his friends to go to church, and he'd been having all these nightmares where he just was falling. No stop, just constant falling. Kind of like you think of Alice in Wonderland, falling for never stopping. And then he just was taken into church, and he went in front of the podium, and he dropped to his knees, and he started having kind of one of those nightmares right there in the front of the church, and he drops to his knees, and all of a sudden these hands come out, and they catch him. He threw the drugs in the garbage. He went to school, went to seminary school, became, as far as I knew, a pastor, stuff like that, and he actually was my high school teacher. Thank you guys.